condoned, will not go unpunished, will not be forgotten. And this is a warning to anyone contemplating the abuse of human rights in Libya or in any other country. Stay your hand. There will be a day of reckoning, and the reach of international justice can be long. We must now maintain the momentum we have attained to ensure there can be no impunity for crimes committed in Libya and to help bring about an immediate end to the violence. Mr. President, no member state has ever been suspended from the Council before, and it is not a decision that we should take lightly. However, this is the time for us to show that we utterly condemn the actions of the Libyan government, a regime that has failed so shamefully in its responsibility to its people and that has been referred to the prosecutor of the International Criminal Court should not be allowed to sit on the Human Rights Council.
Colonel Gaddafi's brutal attacks on his own people are unacceptable and will not be tolerated. Gaddafi has lost the legitimacy to govern, and it is time for him to go without further violence or delay.
We condemn the grave human rights violations being committed in Libya. The violence and the repression must stop. Those responsible must be held to account. Not just a European position, but the view of the international community and its highest authority, the UN Security Council.
Well, I'm pleased to have with me now the Italian Foreign Minister, Franco Frattini, joins me from Geneva. Now, Italy's had a long relationship with Libya. The Foreign Minister is well positioned to help us understand what is going on there. Mr. Frattini, welcome to Talk to Al Jazeera. You and a number of other leaders spoke in Geneva forcefully, the most forceful we've heard yet, against what's happening in Libya. What do you think the role of the international community should be now, from this point onwards?
Well, first of all, to be coherent and united in not considering, no longer considering a possible international interlocutor, a regime which gave orders to kill its own people. This is the first. And secondly, to help the people in Libya, people asking for civil liberties, asking for democracy, asking for economic development. This is something we can do together by involving the Arab countries, the African countries, Arab League and African Union as well, together with European Union and UN.
One of the phrases that stood out for me in the speech that you made to the UN delegates there was, what we mustn't do is leave them alone in their call for liberty, prosperity and democracy. And as you were saying that, I was wondering to myself, why weren't you saying this last week? Why wasn't everybody in that room speaking so forcefully last week and before, when Mr. Gaddafi started to shoot his own people?
Well, because at the very beginning we had no proper information. In a moment where foreign journalists started to come and we got some information. Example, people belonging to the opposition that we have contacted, and they are giving us information about these horrible crimes perpetrated by the regime. At that moment, all the international community is standing really, really united.
I'm somewhat surprised to hear you say that. No information. I mean, Al Jazeera has for more than a week now been broadcasting the voices of the people of Libya, telling us exactly what's going on, occasional pictures coming through. And just a week ago, while that was going on, while Al Jazeera was putting this news out of the world, your Prime Minister stood up and said that he didn't want to call Mr. Gaddafi because he didn't want to disturb him. Something that even your own newspapers were very, very skeptical about.
We commend very warmly what Al Jazeera has done during the last week. As you know better than me, and you will be honest enough to admit that my Prime Minister spoke to Gaddafi by phone. He was the only leader in the world, apart Mr. Ban Ki-moon, speaking directly to Gaddafi, asking him to cease violence and to stop brutalities. But it didn't succeed, as Ban Ki-moon didn't succeed, and unfortunately no other leaders in the world succeeded.
Let me quote to you one of these statements from one of Italy's politicians, Mr. Leoluca Orlando, who said, Gaddafi continues to massacre Libyan citizens who do not ask for anything more than freedom, and Frattini has not yet expressed a word of condemnation. This, again, only last week. Italy's response to all of this, Mr. Frattini, throughout the world has been held up to some fairly damning scrutiny. Don't you think that perhaps you played this one wrong?
Well, we have been asking to play a role in Mediterranean, to support Libyan people. We are doing so, we have been doing so in the past. We make a distinction. One thing is the regime that we cannot consider an interlocutor, as I said. Other thing is the people of Libya that deserves to be helped. On our opposition, unfortunately, we are one of the very few countries in the world when international and foreign policy issues are trapped into domestic political debate, and that's pity.
You talk about taking action. Let's talk a little bit about what kind of action you can take. I mean, it was only very, very recently that you have announced that you're suspending the agreement that Italy has had with Libya and has had for a few years now, an agreement that a lot of people criticized when it was initially struck. Why did it take you so long to decide that you needed to take this kind of action?
You know that Italy decided to suspend unilaterally gas and oil supply a week ago. We did so unilaterally while other foreign companies have not yet decided to do the same. In addition, of course, we have been helping many foreigners to evacuate and to leave the country and to save them and to rescue them from the violence of the Libyan regime. And we are ready also to send, as soon as possible, as soon as the security conditions will allow, a humanitarian mission or humanitarian flights to respond to the request we have got from people that are in Benghazi and that we've already contacted. We are in touch with people that are fighting for liberties in the province of Cyrenaica. We are the only one country that are doing so.
You talk about rescuing the people there. One of the elements of the agreement that you struck with Libya was the very contentious element, which meant that anyone fleeing Libya, anyone looking for refuge from the regime that has been there for all these decades now, Italy had arranged a deal whereby you could just turn the ship around and take them back without even any consideration of their claim to refugee status. Are you suspending that agreement as well?
Yes, that kind of agreement is absolutely clear. It is suspended because we have no longer an interlocutor. That said, you cannot imagine Italy taking alone the responsibility of managing tremendously huge potential flows of migrants coming to north to the European shores. The Italian shores are European shores. That's why we have been asking Europe for taking action, initiative for managing and coordinating the issue.
So let me be clear. Are you saying that you will still maintain this policy of refusal